Zach Galla has made the second ascent of the Process V16 or 8C+, a bishop highball boulder problem that was first ascended by Daniel Woods 9 years ago. We'll also talk about a V16 first ascent in Spain from Pablo Zamora, and an impressive bouldering flash by Adam Ondra in Sweden. Welcome to August Climbing. My name is August. I intended to film an episode last week. Unfortunately, I got quite sick for a few days, but thankfully I am feeling better and glad to be back at it. And this is an exciting episode because it marks a 1-year anniversary of making climbing news videos for you all. I looked back in the archives and my first episode was about Will Bosi's flash attempt on the real burden of dreams. I published that video on March 17th, 2023. That got me thinking, how many of these climbing news episodes have I done? And the answer is 28, which makes this one episode number 29. I quite enjoy numbers and keeping track of things, so I'll be numbering these episodes moving forward. Whether you're new here or have been joining in since the beginning, I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to doing many more of these episodes with you. Let's jump right in now and talk about some exciting news surrounding Zach Galla, who made a long-awaited second ascent of the Process V16 or 8C+. This highball climb is located on the iconic Grandpa Peabody boulder in the Buttermilks in Bishop, California. Now I say long-awaited because Daniel Woods made the first ascent of this boulder problem 9 years ago, all the way back in 2015. This incredible line starts out on a crimpy V12/13 drop-off boulder problem called Social Distortion. After that, for the Process, you've got an added 3 moves of V13/14 climbing to reach the lip. This is where you have the crux section with that dynamic cut feet move high off the ground. Finally, there's a V8+ slab top out very high off the ground to secure the send. In addition to the raw difficulty of this climb, part of the reason why it took so long for it to be repeated is because of logistical difficulties. With the crux move 18 feet off the ground near the lip of this boulder, it requires any climber projecting it to bring loads of crash pads and have a ladder or a good rope setup. As an example of that, Sean Rabitou has also been projecting this boulder, and you can see his ingenious method here for trying out the crux move. But let's take a look at Zach Galla's post from March 8th. The Process V16 second ascent, February 27th, 2024. Topping this one out was a feeling no other climb has ever given me. After sticking the lip and calming myself down, it felt like I was in a bubble, and the only thing that mattered was the next move. It was a true 100% focus I've never found through anything else. Daniel Woods was truly ahead of his time during doing the first ascent of this mental and physical test piece 9 years ago. Mad respect. Thank you for showing me what is possible. A video of my ascent is currently in the works. Wow, very nicely done. According to Galla's interview with climbing.com, he first started trying the Process in December of 2022. He then made a quick weekend trip in April 2023, but it was this year's trip where he went with more intention, including the logistical resources and the support needed to project this climb. Galla estimated that he gave 15 to 20 attempts on this trip, spread out over 2 weeks before he sent the climb. I will link to this article/interview from climbing.com. Definitely check it out as Zach shares some additional details about projecting this climb and his recent shift of focus from competition climbing to outdoor bouldering. I have a feeling that even more great things are ahead for this young 23-year-old climber. And this is not the only V16 climb that we're going to talk about today. Pablo Zamora has made the first ascent of Death by Asphyxiation, giving it a proposed grade of V16 or 8C+. This boulder problem is located in La Pedreza outside Madrid, Spain. It involves an even lower start to an existing climb called Lotus Flower V13 or 8B, and let's see what Pablo has to share about this on Instagram. I will preface this by saying that I did a simple internet translation of this post from Spanish to English, so it likely does not fully capture Pablo's original sentiment, but hopefully gives you a general idea about this climb. From March 11th, he shares, Muerte por Asfixia, or Death by Asphyxiation, 8C plus first ascent, April 1st, 2024. For me, it was the hardest block I've done so far. It all started after the chain of Flor de Loto, or lotus flower. We found an impossible sit, which encouraged me to try other hard blocks to be able to compare. And he lists several other 8C climbs here that he has been working on. After doing all these, I returned to the project and saw that it was much harder than I thought. After infinite hits, injuries, and frustrations, on January 4th, I gave that magical hit in which everything lined up and I was able to come out on top. Thank you to all of you who have accompanied me during the process and to Analog Crimps for these photos. Again, I'm sure not a perfect translation by any means, but what an incredible climb and some great photos here from Pablo Zamora. Huge congratulations to him on this send. Next, let's talk about Satone Yoshida, who recently sent this beautiful line in Ena, Japan. It's a V14 or 8B plus boulder called Tokoyo. Let's see what he has to say about this on Instagram from March 10th. Updated my red point record, took 3 days to send it, continuous technical moves from the bottom, and it requires climbing weird positions with physical stuff for the last part. So happy and satisfied with my climbing today. It motivated me to keep pushing myself for rock climbing as well. I love that this boulder has all these technical details while still requiring power moves and what I'm sure is a scary top out at the end. Very nicely done by Satone. You should also check out his YouTube channel. He began posting videos on there just a few months ago and he's got some really cool stuff. I will link to it in the description. I'm really excited about this next one because it's a send from my friend Chris. He is the co-owner of Fargo Climbing, and you may remember him from our Moonboard Monday episode last year. He's a really strong climber and has been projecting this classic Minnesota boulder problem called the Raven V11/12 or 8A/8A+. Let's see what Chris had to say on Instagram about this send. The Raven V11/12, March 10th, 2024, had a magnificent day in the woods yesterday. This boulder meant a lot. Not only is it the first of the grade for me, it's the first new outdoor grade I've climbed since 2017, but more than that, it provided a safe space and an escape from what has been an immensely stressful couple of years. The one constant I had was this boulder. Doing the same hike in, the same warm-up, throwing everything at this one boulder, and getting to hang out in the woods all day in the cold or warmth has been immensely therapeutic. This climb has provided me a sense of direction and distraction when I needed it most. What seemed like an unattainable climb for myself, tall and horribly inflexible, has been attained through hundreds, if not thousands of attempts, and while the send lasted only a minute, the countless days and hours spent with friends and in solitude, failing was the real treasure. I am elated for Chris on this incredible bouldering send, and it's really inspiring to hear about what this climb, projecting it, has meant to him amidst some really challenging situations that he's walking through in his life. And if you're ever in the Midwest part of the US, definitely pay Fargo Climbing a visit. Next up, I wanted to share some bouldering first ascents with you by Niky Ceria. This comes from Italy, specifically the island of Sardinia, where Niky has been sharing some magnificent photos recently. Here's an example from February 27th, Il Vescovo First Ascent, Sardinia. Do you know what Vescovo means in Italian? It means bishop. And the feelings I got on the final slab of this line were exactly the same I had at the Buttermilks in California. This became the first line I went back on this trip in 2024. After one cleaning session, I discovered its full potential. It could become a line able to express many good quality features, thin texture, wide hand pinches, Incredible climb, compressions, heel hooks, and powerful movements. Good looking from many points of view. I mean, just look at the breathtaking aesthetics of this boulder. And this is only one of many that Ceria has been sharing recently on Instagram. Notably missing here is commentary about the grade of these climbs. And though I'm curious about knowing the difficulty from a grade perspective, I can respect here the focus being on the beauty and the experience of these climbs. I love it. Here's another awesome bouldering send, this time from Orrin Coley on a climb called Wild West. Right away when I saw this, I knew this rock looked familiar to me. Perhaps it does to you too. It's a line that you may remember seeing Will Bosi on last year. But let's see what Orrin has to say about this send, including some interesting thoughts about climbing grades. He shares Wild West 8B+, and this would be V14. I spent most of last summer working this thing, getting painfully close before finally hitting a burnout in August after my Rockland trip. Thankfully, the return was less dramatic than previous sessions, and after a warm-up, refresher of the moves, and 20 minutes of trying from the start, I finally finished it up. Regarding the grade, it was originally given 8B by the first ascender who utilized a very different sequence that is all but impossible for someone of my height. I used the same beta as Will Bosi that he discovered when making the second ascent. But I feel the climbing is far more comparable to many 8B+ than 8Bs that I've previously tried and done. Upgrading is not a normalized thing in climbing. Downgrades get thrown around far more frequently, and an upgrade is almost never part of the conversation, especially when the internet gets heavily invested in a particular climb. But the deeper you delve into this conversation, the more you find yourself confused. Grades of a climb can be a very subjective thing. In theory, they should be given for the easiest possible way up a climb, but with everybody being so different in shape and size, sometimes that easiest way is straight up impossible for you. Which begs the question, can a climb have multiple grades? Probably not, but I think it's time to break the stigma of an upgrade and be willing to suggest an opinion without fear, because it literally doesn't matter. I always love a robust discussion about climbing grades. I'm a huge fan of climbers giving their honest opinion about the grade of a climb they've sent, whether that's an upgrade, a downgrade, or concurring with the original grade. It can all be part of the discussion surrounding this complex topic. As far as I'm concerned, there's no reason to get upset about any of it. And most importantly, congrats to Orrin Coley on this send. And now here's yet another great bouldering send from Will Bosi's trip to the United States. He says, a Clockwork Orange V12/8A+, such a fun one which I couldn't resist trying when the pads were there, another classic failed rest day. I left the US only a week ago now, and I've been taking some time off to rest. Super psyched for training and future projects though, time to edit now. And oh, very nice, likely alluding to the footage of his Return of the Sleepwalker send, which we are all eagerly anticipating. Let's change things up a little bit with a couple of route sends instead of bouldering sends. First, we have Stefano Carnati with a send of Vicious Circle 515A/B or 9A+/B. On Instagram, he shares, last Saturday, I succeeded in the second ascent of the hardest Slovenian route, first ascent by Adam Ondra in 2016. Having climbed most of the hard routes in Mischa Pek, it seemed rather unjustified to leave without even checking, quote, that weird, brutal link up in the left cave, end quote, as locals used to reference it. So I took a look, and this is when the Vicious Circle trapped me in. The complexity of the movements won me over immediately. For my nth time in my climbing career, I ended up in the loop of projecting, the typical process made of progress, setbacks, pressure, vacillation, and so forth, affecting all lovers of the sport. But last Saturday, I found the key to break this endless loop, time for some extra slices of cake, and looking forward to diving into another upcoming loop. Definitely a projecting process we can all relate to, and we see also a comment here from none other than Adam Ondra himself saying, wow, Stefano, so cool, somebody repeated it. It's a link up, but climbs well. Very well done by Stefano. It's always exciting to see second ascents, especially after a considerable amount of time has passed. Speaking of which, let me tell you about this long-awaited repeat of an insane trad climbing route. I came to learn about this then thanks to a comment from Theo Magus, a regular viewer of this channel. Thank you so much for that, Theo, and I also hope that I pronounced your name correctly. So Alex Moore made this second ascent of the Groove located in the Peak District in the UK. It's graded E9 7B, and I won't pretend to be an expert on British trad climbing grades, but my general understanding is that E9 puts this very high up the scale, quite far up there, indicating a high degree of difficulty and risk as it relates to placing protection for this climb. The 7B in this grade is not equivalent to the sport grades that you are used to seeing. Instead, it relates more closely to an 8C or 515B. Are you confused yet? Me too, and I'm willing to stand corrected, but let's get back to this climb. Alex shared on Instagram recently. View from a shoe, the Groove. That's disappointing footage, isn't it? Went on to finish on James' original line, opting for a massive dyno rather than the layback method. Great belaying from Spooner. He references James Pearson, who made the first ascent in 2008. Interestingly, part of this line was repeated by Kevin Jorgensen shortly after the first ascent, also in 2008. However, though Kevin completed the first crux, he finished the climb via a different and easier line. So it's this original line that has now finally seen a second ascent by Alex Moore after 16 years. UK Climbing has a great article about this, including an interview with Alex Moore, so definitely go check that out. I will link to it in the description. And huge congrats to Alex Moore on this ascent. Now let's hop back to bouldering for a second with some impressive flashes. This first one is from Will Bosi. Imagine that. He shares on Instagram, Lethal Design V12 Flash. Super happy with this one as I had no beta. I was meant to be on a rest day, but it looked too good not to try. Highly recommend. However, long and crimping is definitely my style. The top out is scary though. And yes, that does look like a scary highball top out. At least from this photo, I'm seeing a whole lot of rock down below and not many crash pads. And super impressive that he did this, especially with no beta. Second, and as promised, we have a bouldering flash from Adam Ondra on a recent trip to Sweden. Let's see what Adam has to say on Instagram, and I'll do my best to try this pronunciation. Luftig till nålens Oga 8B plus flash. This would be V13/14. First time bouldering in Sweden, and what a day. Pretty unique how one single block can produce such an amazing quality lines. I saw a video of this unique compression roof arete a few years ago, and I knew I absolutely had to climb this thing one day. I had a great crew with strong locals, lots of beta available, and amazing and motivating vibes. The higher start to this arete is originally graded AB+, then 8B was suggested. At first, I was described perfect beta by Pama Luke. I went for the flash of the higher start, the one that's graded 8B+ or 8B. Everything flowed really well. I got all technical details perfectly on this compression beast, and I found myself at the final cut loose where I just tried really, really hard. Can't remember when I had tried so hard in the span of just a second, and I was on top. I think hard 8B fits this line. Wow, the power, body tension, and finger strength required to do this thing, and then to think of flashing it. It's so cool to see Adam Ondra try really, really hard and hold on at that cut loose move, and you see him shaking out his fingers at the end there. Incredible. Now for 3 quick things to keep on your radar. 1, Jana Švecová, aka Climbing Jane, is back on her project. This is of course Terranova, an Adam Ondra first ascent from 2011 that remains unrepeated. Many on the internet have suggested in comments that perhaps this climb deserves an upgrade from V16 or 8C Plus to V17 or 9A. Only time will tell, but all the best to Jana on her project. Number 2, last episode we talked extensively about Elias Iagnemma and his current projecting of Burden of Dreams. Then on March 9th, Elias shared a reel of what certainly looks to be his closest attempt on this boulder. Painfully close, actually. And now it appears that he's left Finland for a little while due to a poor weather forecast that included a lot of precipitation. But hopefully he'll get a good weather window and we'll see him back out there soon. Number 3, Daniel Woods and Sean Bailey are on a climbing trip in Italy, and at least part of this trip is focused on projecting Sean Rabatu's first ascent, that is Alphane, V17 or 9A. Let's see what these guys can do, and stay tuned for more news in that regard. My name is August. Thank you so much for watching.